I'm joined today by Howard Robertson. Howard, you're really the instigator behind Independence Day. So I'll press the buttons, but I'm really delighted to share this exciting, when you've turned it into a weekend. Tell me more.
Well, we have. I'm one of the instigators, I should say. I'm not the instigator. I think the thing about Independence Day, let me tell you about Independence Day. It was first started by a recruitment company, actually, back in 2011. And it lasted for about a year or so, and they didn't do anything with it. And with their agreement, we resurrected it in 2018. And really the reason for doing it was to have a moment in the middle of the year when we could all get together and celebrate the great independent retail sector, the great independent retailers, and also to create a campaign that perhaps individually we couldn't do for ourselves, but if we built something that collectively everybody could climb on board with, they could take and use to promote their own area, their own business, their own high street, their own town. And really that's what the notion was. So it's really about creating a collaborative campaign that culminates in one day a year, July the 4th, which is Independence Day, excuse the pun. But this year, as you say, because Independence Day this year, July the 4th, falls on a Monday, which isn't the ideal day, we've decided to make a whole weekend of it this year. So we have an Independence Day weekend on the 2nd, 3rd of July and culminating on the 4th of July, where we're just trying to get the word out to as many people as possible about, what amazing independent retailers there are around the country, why they need support, what you can find from them, what makes them different, what makes them special, and driving people back into town centres and city centres to support their local retail shops, restaurants, cafes, bars, whatever it is.
And brilliant. Just delighted to be part of this, Howard. So great to see so many bids joining us. Thank you. Our aim of today is not to take too much of your time, but to be able to give you some background for Independence Day, which Howard has eloquently done, and then look at, just going to talk you through the assets that are available to support the campaign, and then look at how you can get, Howard runs a PR agency, and we're going to talk through his top tips for how to get great press coverages. And as you may or may not know, Maybe does social media tools. And so we're providing free social media tools for all bids that want to promote the campaign. So without further ado, we'll step through these slides. As Howard has said, Independence Day is all about providing you with a campaign to support your independent retailers. And Howard, you've got both the logo and the poster that we'll make sure we send to everybody on this call. And
absolutely,
this is not meant to be a whole load of work. It's a really simple ask of shoppers to support independence over Independence Day. Please, I just meant to say at the beginning, please do fire questions into the panel as we go through this. So if you've got any questions as we go through, please do ask. But Howard, it's no more complicated than that, is it? That just promote the message of join Independence Day.
It's exactly that. We've always tried to, we're still trying to make this as simple and user-friendly as we possibly can. It's completely cost-free. Nobody has to pay anything to be part of this. You don't have to pay anything to get the poster. You can go to the website, you can download it, we can send you it, you can the logo. We don't restrict you in what you can do with the posters or the logos. You can put them on your websites, on your social media. We'd love to get the poster into as many shop windows as we can. Literally, it's as I mentioned before, it's about giving people the assets to go and really make this work in their areas.
And then Howard, as we go through this, you've also got some nice templates for actually how showcasing how bids can really showcase their retailers, because this is the whole message here, is that every place is the sum of its parts, and it's about showcasing those independent retailers to really give people a reason to come to your place, and as you say, be part of something bigger.
Yeah, absolutely. And also I think there is an appetite among the media in supporting independent retail, particularly over what everybody's been through the last couple of years. And there are great stories in towns all over the country about shops. And there is an appetite for feel-good stories, and there is a desire for people to promote, particularly local and regional media, to promote what's going on in the towns in their area. So we can talk about that as well.
Fahad, am I right in saying that you're asking, I know that we've been involved in sharing quite a lot on social media, you're asking businesses and places to sort of nominate retailers for you to share with the press, retailers with great stories, because the press are hungry for stories, aren't they?
Absolutely. And, we've been doing some every year, as you know, we do some video interviews with independent retailers around the country. We did one this morning, which we're in the process of editing, with a sustainable clothing shop in Peckham. And they've just got a great story. I mean, sustainable clothing is a big thing at the moment. And as we get closer to Independence Day and we start talking to the bigger media, and they say to us, well, have you got a retailer we can talk to? We just want to put the retailers out front and center. This isn't about me or about our team. We don't want to be out there doing the interviews. We want to put the retailers in the foreground to tell their stories.
So all the bids on the call, am I right to say to them, Howard, please nominate retailers you'd like us to go and interview?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
Please put them in the chat, or if you want to keep it secret, put them in private message to us. But our question to everybody on this call, and please share this with other bids as well, is, those independent retailers deserve all the support they can get. Please tell us the businesses you'd like us to interview. Please let us know who they are in the chat. We're not hounding them for any other purpose other than to put them in the PR. So please nominate businesses, tell us who they are, and let us tell their story to the press and share them on social. So please drop them in the chat, or if you'd like to do it privately, by all means, that's fine. But please give us the, what's the word you call, material to go and make them famous, because there are so many beautiful stories out there.
I think the other thing, sorry, Polly, I think the other thing that would be great is as the retailers get the posters, we'll probably start this the week after next, is, we want as many pictures on social media of the poster in the shop window, and that enables us to then retweet or repost and actually again highlight the retailer whose window it's in. It's another way of just amplifying the audience for individual retailers or individual towns.
Yeah, it's just, it's really simple. It's that awareness of, oh, I could go and buy that. I could do that. I'd forgotten about that business. It doesn't have to be complicated. So like you say, Howard, the more posters we get out there and the more those pictures get shared, that spreads the message another way too. But the more businesses that we can know to talk about, the better. So please don't be shy. Please. And so I would say there are three ways, which is tell us who they are. When they've got their pictures up, their posters up, please share them. And also just tag us into things of businesses that could be part of that could be, as part of the press campaign. You're quite a lot today. Come on, has the sun got you? Come on, nominate some businesses. We got masses, but the more we have, the better. Slides are stuck at the moment. Sorry, next slide. And one of the hard things, and one of the reasons maybe is putting our weight behind this is that, as you may or may not know, we've got these local guides that are populated based upon what people say on social. So we will also send all of you on the call today a link to your own local guide, which means that you can literally through one link share all of businesses in your town, and the content that gets pulled through to here is the content they're posting. So rather than having to find all your businesses, you can literally share all of the businesses in your town, and you can toggle it so you're just sharing the independents as well, because fundamentally all the content that your businesses are publishing is what's available in your town at any given moment. So it's a really easy way to promote all of the businesses in your town and make it really make it a draw. Let people see what's on offer in your town in a really, really simple way. That's available to everybody all the time, but particularly over Independence Day. And then really sort of core message from the campaign is follow, engage, and mention the campaign across Independence Day and your own social media platforms. We know that can be hard work. So again, maybe saying to you, look, if you use your Maybe account, as I'm sure if you haven't got an account yet, please go and sign up for one for free. We'll promote you to access to a free account. And this means that you can literally go and type in your place name, and we'll show you, lay out in front of you, all of the content for all of your independent businesses in your place, which you can like, you can share, you can engage with, and it's all there in front of you. You haven't got to go and find it across Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. It's all there, and it's a really simple way to engage all of the businesses in your town and invite them to be part of Independence Day. If you need any help with that, this blue button bottom right links you to our team. Our team will help you. So literally go to maybetech.com, sign up for account. Sarah, who's our head of place, will go and make sure that your account's upgraded, and will help you engage all your businesses through Independence Day and beyond. And then also within Maybe there's a scheduler, and it means you can see all of your content, but not only that, you can see somebody else's content. So you could, for example, I would suggest what you do is in your Maybe content scheduler, add Independence Day or add Maybe Techers, and you'll be able to see all the content we're posting and just literally replicate our content. There's a button that says replicate, and you can really easily borrow everybody else's content. Again, makes it super simple to really smash a campaign out, whether it's for Independence Day or any other local campaign. By having access to tools like this, it makes it really easy to make sure your content absolutely smashes it. And just repeat, there is no charge for this for bids to use for Independence Day. And Howard, your big message is become an official supporter. Tell me all about that.
So this year, recognising the importance and the contribution that bids and town centre management teams can make, we, having sent that, I've just realised I sent you not the ideal logo, the ones on the posters. We have an official supporters logo. So if you as a bid, this is the retailer can use the logo that's on there, the July 2nd, 3rd one. But if you look at the poster, it just says official supporter slightly above it. If bids want to get on board with this and become really enthusiastic and say, yeah, we're going to take this on, we're going to encourage our area to get on board and deliver this, we're really happy for bids to be an official supporter of Independence Day. You can have an official supporter logo. You can put it on your website. You can do a blog on our website that we can share some stuff for you. And really get on board and show, if you like, this collaborative ownership of the campaign.
And I think that's a core message, Howard, isn't it? It's not your campaign, it's not our campaign, it's everyone's campaign. This is a general desire to share independent retail across the UK. And I've got a call with Byra tomorrow, and they really want to get behind it as well. It's, how do we help independents have a bigger voice? And the answer is we do that collaboratively. So, there's no agenda here other than saying this is a forum for which we can help independents get a bigger share of voice. But we need that content first. We need you to tell you who are those independents in your local area that would like to get more exposure. The answer is everybody, but point us in the direction of those that have got a story.
I think the other thing as well, sorry to butt in, I think the other thing as well that works quite well within in areas is if we can get retailers to band together to do things. So, on a particular street we've had in the past where half a dozen shop owners in a particular street have come together to do something around Independence Day. That works as well, because one shop with a poster in the window in isolation is probably not going to achieve an enormous amount, but 6, 8 of them working together or doing something together to celebrate that weekend can cut through and resonate with local shoppers.
And I think, Howard, that brings us nicely on to this whole piece of the what gets cut through.
Yeah.
And I think just what I want to do, I want to sort of bang on about social media for a second. And the next half of this is all about how you create those stories that really get cut through in the press. And I think the blend between press and PR is getting forever blurrier, because at the end of the day, we're all now sadly journalists, because we're all now publishing content. 80% of us spend over an hour a day on social media. So you can't afford to ignore what you're promoting. One of the outputs for me of Independence Day, and the reason we're lending our support to it, is that the more the places can promote the businesses in the place, the greater the draw of the place, because you've got to cut through those consumer feeds. It's why we provide the tools that make it super simple for any business to get more out of social media, because our whole raison d'etre is to help businesses get more out of social media, because that is where the customer lives. And we're providing you with all of the tools to really leverage social. But also, you may or may have not seen, we've now got an extensive training hub. So anywhere where you're getting stuck, you've got the answers to everything you possibly need. We'll send you the links to those after this call. But Howard, I think what I'd really like to focus on for the rest of this is how to get great local PR. And I think that really comes back to your piece about the story, about how not only the story of the individual retailers, but also how those individual retailers are working together to do extraordinary things. It could be around sustainability, it could be something about Independence Day, but it's those stories that the press want to hear, isn't it? So
yeah, and there really is, at a local level, there really is a desire and an appetite both for stories that are heartwarming and positive, stories that present themselves very well visually, and also a desire to get behind and support the businesses in their local area. So there is an appetite for it, but there are things you need to be aware of. So with my PR hat on, I thought what we'd do is just take you through some of the things that you need to be aware of before approaching your local media, whether it's for Independence Day or frankly for anything else. And this is essentially it is. So I start on the left here with messaging. So it's like, what is the message that you're trying to get across? Because, and to which of your target audiences? Because the messaging to your stakeholders, your target audiences, is going to be subtly different, or could be drastically different, but subtly different from one target audience and stakeholder group to another. So what you're saying, for example, to a retailer will not necessarily be the same thing that you're saying to a potential shopper, which may not be the same thing that you're saying to the local authority, and so on and so on. So we literally advise, you know, writing down those messages. If we were going to get across a message to a shopper, it would be this. And then depending on what the story is, the challenge is to make sure those messages feature in the story that you're giving to the local newspaper or the local TV or whatever. And secondly, is there actually a story? So this is what we call our so what test. So is there a story that's going to be interesting? And there are lots of things that make up a story. So do you have, for example, let me pluck up some examples or some ideas in my mind. So has your town, have the independent retail sector in your town centre, how has that, for example, rebounded post-pandemic? So is footfall up? And if so, why is it up? How does it compare with the national average? You know, why is your area doing better or not as well as the national average? Data is really useful. It provides a context. So we've got a town centre that is doing X% better than the national average. And with Independence Day coming up, retailers in the area have banded together to create a special promotion or series of promotions or events or whatever it is. And there you have the start of something that could be quite an interesting story. And then you begin to think, okay, so this potentially passes the so what test. So story that shop celebrates Independence Day by putting poster in window is not going to cut through, but something that puts the context and puts your town or your area in the context of this potentially has a story. So if we move on to the next one, we've assigned the test. Then the question is the hook strong enough? And that's really where it really is. There needs to be a news angle. Do you have the data? Do you have the information? How many independent retailers? What is the, if you like, what's the state of the union for the independent retail sector in your area this Independence Day? And then also, what's the visual? What's it going to look like? Whether it's a newspaper or whether it's online or whether it's TV, it's going to need to be visually drawing in, a visually attractive, visually interesting. Less so for radio, for obvious reasons, but you need to think about what the visual is. So, you know, I'm not necessarily saying think about the shops that look the most beautiful, but think about the shop environments that are going to present themselves in the most interesting way and be the best representation of your area. So let's move on.
So give me an example of that, Howard. So, you know, from a visual, it's a great, you know, when I picked that whole, I think that line, a picture speaks 1,000 words, a really strong visual. Whether so if you, for example, the picture of an outdoor of a cafe on a street doesn't necessarily look particularly interesting. But if you were to go inside that cafe and you were able to do a picture of the owner of the cafe behind the counter making a coffee or preparing some food, or you go into a gift shop or a clothes shop and you have the owner of the shop in their shop setting surrounded by products and an environment that gives you a sense of what the shop is like, that is more visually interesting than just the front door of a shop. And I think it's also really important for the human thing.
if you're going to talk about a shop and therefore a shop owner who's going to talk about their story, that shop owner needs to be in the picture. So there's a question again, you need to work with shop owners who are happy to speak about their business, happy to be filmed if you're going to go down the TV route, happy to talk to TV, to have cameras in. And you need to probably have 2 or 3 case studies so you can offer the media their choice of 2 or 3, because it might be that they have a particular preference for a clothes shop versus a card shop or whatever. So the more you can offer them, then the better chance you have of reeling them in.
And I think what's interesting with this is that this links back to social very heavily, which, as we all know, the visual of social and video in social is so key these days, that actually the effort that's put into finding the right PR story and the right creative that goes with that will also mean your social media goes much further as well. So it's the quality of the content that drives the success of everything, isn't it?
I mean, absolutely. And to be honest, of course, don't forget, if you're if your local newspaper runs your story online, then you then have a link to that coverage that you can share on your own social. The only thing I always caution people with this is if it runs it in print, theoretically, you're not allowed to reproduce that print page on social because they own the copyright to it. It may be that they're happy to allow you to do that, but if it runs online, you have a URL, a link to the coverage. You can use that coverage on your social media. If you get broadcast coverage, if your local regional BBC or ITV station come and do a little piece on it, whilst you can't use the video, what you can do is usually they will then upload that piece to their BBC website page or their ITV website page, and you can use the link to that page to share it again on your social. So this is with PR, with the media coverage, it's all about making this work as hard and as fast as you possibly can. Take those links, put them out, send them out by email if you have an email list that you can mail to.
So just want to say thank you so much for everybody that's dropping the names of places in the chat. We will be in touch with you about how we can help them leverage their story. But I think we will put our back into or getting the coverage. But it's really important that you ask for any help if you want help to get the social story to work harder, because it's each story becomes something you can use across multiple channels, and that multiple channels is what makes independence go further. Is what helps cut through to consumers. 80% of consumers spending an hour a day on social. All of those things knit together to make that story go further, right?
Absolutely.
Compelling local angle.
Yeah, I mean,
an expert in the room, Howard.
I think this is the thing. I mean, is if you're talking to I'm going to probably offend somebody now, but if you pull out
Go on.
I don't know, the Rochester Gazette, the story needs to have a clearly defined Rochester angle. That's where I came back to. Rochester retailers, are using Independence Day to cement their return post-pandemic. Rochester retailers are banding together to create XYZ. And then from a bid point of view, do we have an expert? So yeah, we're putting the retailers and the shop owners front and center, but it would be good if if the bid have somebody they can put forward who can contextualize all those stories in terms of an overview for the town. So you get the bid expert or the local authority expert who's talking about the performance of the retail sector in the town or the city or the area. And then you use the individual retailers who are telling their stories that back up the bigger macro picture, if you like. How to approach the media. The temptation is always to put together a press release, slap the press release out. We generally think that the best way to do this is by all means write the press release, because that's a good way of having your story down in one place. But actually pick the individual journalist or journalists on the station or the newspaper that you want, and go to the individual directly. Before instead of just sending the release, send them an intro that actually bullet points what the release is about. Did you know it's Independence Day coming up? Did you know the area has rebounded? We've got a couple of great retailers who'd love to talk to you about how things are going ahead of Independence Day, and give it to craft, if you like, craft an individual approach to each of the journalists you're going with. And that's much more effective because it feels to them like you're producing something bespoke and special to them. And that's why I said, that's one of the reasons why I mentioned having multiple retailers, because then you can offer TV or radio a different retailer to speak to a newspaper or a website. And of course, what that means is if you land 3 of them, that means 3 different individual retailers get some exposure.
Really good tips there, Howard. And do you have any, so is there any particular angle right now that the media is really looking at? I know we've all created press releases and sent them out and thought, oh goodness, why is that not hit home? Are there any sort of really hot buttons at the moment that you think the press will pick up on more? Independence Day, great hook, but is there anything that you could layer on top of that to make sure that the bids can really, leverage the effort they put in?
Cost of living is just number one on everybody's agenda. So how the independent retailers in your area are addressing the cost of living issue, not just for their customers, but also for their businesses, because presumably their own costs have risen. So how are they addressing that? I noticed this morning, I think we posted it on our Twitter, or it's going on our Twitter later today, a cafe, I forget where it was, that has committed that it's not going to raise the price of its drinks for the rest of the year. I don't quite know how they do that, but so anything that revolves around cost of living, anything that revolves around sustainability, anybody that is doing something that is CSR related, corporate social responsibility related, so whether that's the retailer is itself a social enterprise, or whether the retailer has somebody working in the shop who is a Ukrainian refugee.
So Tracy, apology, Tracy. I've missed an E out of your name and I replied, but Tracy's just popped into the chat. Two Fat Cats, a cafe opened just a few weeks before the war broke out by Ukrainian family. That's a that's a great expert, isn't it? That's a good hook for the story.
That is utterly perfect.
Yeah.
I mean that's the thing. Those I think are the 3 big ones at the moment. It's cost of living. It's anything that's related to or helping or supporting Ukraine, and it's anything sustainability. And I think the thing that's quite interesting that always comes up is one of the advantages that independent retailers have over chain retailers is the nature of the product offering is different. So anything where you have a retailer that is doing something, a bit left field in terms of the products that they are stocking or the way they are serving, being able to bring that out and say, because this is the essence of independent retail, they're doing this, you'll get different products, different choice, different level of service. So those sorts of angles are always useful. But this one on Two Fat Cats Cafe, I think it's brilliant, and I will almost certainly be in touch with Tracy to see whether there's something we can do about that.
There are lots of nobody else feel left out. There are masses others in the chat that we will definitely pick up on. So Tracy, thank you. Keep them coming, everybody, because this is the why can't I get this word out? What's the word, Howard? What's the word? It's the material you need. The material.
The essence.
The essence. There you go. Thank you very much.
That's all right.
So how can we use all of the above to link to an event? Howard, take it away. Whether it's Independence Day, National Cupcake Day, or Healthy Eating, those are hooks to hang stories.
These are hooks, and this is what I'm hoping is that these tips will be something that you can use not just for Independence Day, but you can move forward with as a bid team moving forward. So today, believe it or not, is National Cupcake Day. Who knew? Otherwise, it is absolutely today. So who knew? Otherwise, I would have been out stuffing my face long before now. But that could be an opportunity, for example, to get 2 or 3 cafes together to which of the cafes is going to produce the biggest giant sized cupcake, or which of the cafes is going to come up with a cupcake that's a slightly bizarre flavor or a slightly unusual flavor. And all that gives you a story that says, you know, the Two Fat Cats Cafe has produced a special, I don't know, I'm just looking at what's on my table here. Apple and raspberry is not particularly unusual, but, you know, a Marmite cupcake.
Wow.
To mark National Cupcake Day. That's the hook. The picture is the owner of the cafe with a tray of these cupcakes, and then
with the Ukrainian backstory makes it a winner.
And absolutely, and then you just get to talk about the fact that how long the cafe's been open, what they've been doing, or you've got a competition within your town area. All of the cafes have come up to create, they've been given the job of creating a new flavored cupcake, and we're asking local shoppers to vote for which is their favorite cupcake on Cupcake Day. Similarly, later in the year, November the 2nd is Eating Healthy Day. That will give you exactly the same opportunity, but for greengrocers or restaurants, or to do something in your area to encourage healthy eating. And it gives you another opportunity to talk about those retailers, those cafes, those restaurants, those shops, whatever, all supporting Eating Healthy Day in your area. There's a website. I mean, it is slightly bonkers because there's not only a day for everything every day, there's probably a day for everything 16 times a day. But there is a website called daysoftheyear.com. And if you go on that, there's a calendar you can look on each day, and it'll tell you what that particular day is dedicated to. And you could just, you know, choose the ones that interest you and ignore the ones that don't. I think the only thing I would say is obviously this isn't something you can do every week because the media will get a bit bored of it. But if you were to say once a quarter, you're going to pick a day and you're going to look at a different aspect of your retailer base in your area and come up with something a little bit imaginative, then these can work very well as a media story.
I've just actually gone to the website, and today is also National Cupcake Day. It's International Bath Day. Who knew that?
There you
World
go.
Blood Donor Day, World National Call Your Doctor Day. And tomorrow...
Yesterday was National Sewing Machine Day.
There you go. Tomorrow is Nature Photography Day.
There you go.
Beer Day Britain. I mean, we all need that one, right?
Exactly.
Tomorrow. National Lobster Day.
A little bit like Independence Day. These things are there. Just use them as hooks.
Yeah, really great. I'd love to hear people's thoughts on how much they use national days. What fun. Who knew that? Thank you, Howard. I've learned something today.
There you go.
Love that. One thing I didn't say actually at the beginning is, as part of our support for Independence Day, the poster that you've all got access to has got a QR code on it, which means that if people scan the QR code, they'll be entered in to win back their local spend, and we will tell them how that works when they do that. But I'd love to have any questions from you about Independence Day. Howard, I think you've given an amazing rundown on PR. PR is sort of a black art. But it is, for me, I think I always think of PR, and particularly in our sort of digital world today, is that it's ultimately the story that you can sell, that you can share through multiple channels. But getting that story right, whether it's to be printed or whether it's to be pushed out on social, is the key to your content actually hitting home. And it comes down to good old fashioned factors, which is there a story there? And Independence Day is a really strong hook to put that story on, but it works for every other day too. Howard, I think you've given a fantastic rundown. Actually, I'm going to stop scrolling for 2 seconds and switch screens because you've given me a release, haven't you? We're going to actually talk through and say, what does good look like? So, and I think, if you, let me have a look, what have we got here?
So this is a story that it's actually a maybe story. And this is about maybe providing some digital skills training. That's easy for me to say, in Herefordshire. And this comes back. So we have the story here about, you know, the local angle is clearly it's Herefordshire. There's research and data in there that tells you why, that gives you the essential local angle, the fact that only 23% of businesses in Herefordshire were active on social media, whereas 40% of consumers in England say they're spending more than 3 hours a day on it. And then we back that in with a really lovely case study of Ludlow Gin in Herefordshire, where Sean Ward, the managing director there, tells us his story, the story of his business. We've got a nice little quote in there from Polly, and we've got a nice little quote in there from the cabinet member for economy and environment. So there's literally everything in there that the journalists could want. And the journalists can do what they like with it. They could decide we're going to drop the council quote. They could decide we're going to drop Polly's quote. They could decide we don't actually want the case study, but we've given them everything, and collectively together, and you've got a really nice visual picture because the guy looks cool, looks interesting. The environment around him is pretty cool. And so it has all of the ingredients to make, you know, a good positive story for the magazine. I think this got picked up a number of times in different places. So really that's, if you like, that there is the essence of what we were talking about earlier, the local angle, bit of research and data that quantifies it, expert local quotes, Polly's quote in this case as well, and then a good local case study that backs up everything else we're saying.
Thank you, Howard. And then just a question from Emily Gibbon around the posters. Emily thinks there are 2 posters available. Which ones should they use for retailers? I think there's one. So Emily, if you've picked up 2, that means that somewhere we've got our wires crossed. Am I right in saying
there's one poster? There's 2 versions of that one poster. So there's Love Your Local Retailers. That's the poster. There's one version that has an official supporter logo on it. There's another one that has just the ordinary logo without the words official supporter. If bids are printing for local businesses, I would suggest you use the one that doesn't have official supporter on it. But to be honest, if you use the one that has official supporter on it, nobody's going to come knocking on your door and saying that's the wrong poster, take it down.
So there you go, Emily. I would just, whatever post you've got,
whatever takes your fancy is fine.
Yeah. You've been a great audience. I love giving back people time. So if anybody's got any questions, please do fire them in the chat right now. We've got another open question coming in. I love this. Questions coming in. As Emily said, that's answered. That's brilliant. Answered. We're good. We've answered that one. We've answered that one. We've done that one. Done. So we're going to send you an email with your links to the poster. We're going to send you a link to grab yourself a Maybe account so you can publish it. Please send in. We've got in chat all of your suggested businesses. Howard will pick those stories up with you. And if you've got any questions around PR, please feel free to send them in through the Maybe platform, Howard, and we'll send them on to you. And
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you look out for much more content coming out before Independence Day. Howard, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, please visit us. Find us on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. It's at UK Indie Day. Go and have a look at the website, independenceDayUK.com, independenceuk.org. And as I say, we're going to start rolling out videos literally over the next week or so. So there's plenty of content there, and we're going to start reaching out to journalists soon as well about Independence Day. So we need case studies and businesses we can put forward and get them to talk to.
And we'd love to be sharing your video. We'd love to be sharing your businesses. So thank you all so much for joining us today. It's over and out from Pollitt, maybe. And Howard.
Do I need to do something like drop the mic? Or is that?
I think eat a cupcake, possibly.
Oh yeah, I'm going to go and eat a cupcake. Thank you, Polly.